Welcome to Historically Black Sense. Today, we're posted in the Motor City, my hometown, Detroit, Michigan. A city that gave us Motown, the auto industry, grit, grind, and greatness. It's also a city that, much like our guest today, is focused on legacy and leadership. Today, we're sitting down with a brother who's made service, scholarship, and brotherhood more than just pillars. He's made them his mission. International First Vice President of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated and candidate for International President, Brother David Turner. Welcome, my brother.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
All right, so before we get into the big questions, we're going to break the ice Sigma style. This is Sigma Speed. 14 lighthearted questions, 5 seconds to answer each. Let's have some fun.
Okay.
If Sigma had a theme song, what would it be?
We've got one, Soul.
Okay. What would you rather do? Stroll in dress shoes or sprint in Sigma slides?
I have strolled in dress shoes.
Okay. What is your go-to cookout plate? And be specific.
Cookout, ribs, baked beans with a lot of meat, potato salad.
Okay, now I'm hungry. All right. You're on the yard, Greek Unity Day. Who is most likely to beat you in spades?
Oh, no. Not spades, not bid whist, not backgammon, dominoes, checkers, nothing. Nobody.
Oh, I said nobody. You get to bring one celebrity into Sigma. Who are you topping?
If this was Drink Champs, I'm going to take a shot on this one.
All right. One thing that a Neo should never say to a pro fight.
I can't.
Ooh. What is the worst excuse that you've heard for missing a chapter meeting?
I thought it was next month.
You're stranded at Conclave. What is 3 things that you're bringing?
I'm at Conclave.
Mm-hmm.
I'm with 5,000 brothers. I shouldn't need much of anything. Toothbrush and some clean underwear.
All right. If your campaign was a Netflix series, what would be the title?
Born to Achieve.
In your honest opinion, who strolled harder, collegians or alumni?
Ooh. I'm gonna say collegiate with these 64 count strolls. Like I max out in about 16 count. That's about it for me.
Okay. Now let's get some Detroit edition going.
Uh-oh.
Coney Island or a Detroit style pizza?
Well, you know I'm a Chicago guy, but I'm gonna go ahead with Detroit on this one.
Okay. Motown classic that describe your leadership style.
Ooh, Motown classic leadership style. Oh, dang it. Song by one of the former Temptations. Dang it. Come back to that.
Okay. Pistons, Lions, Tigers, or Red Wings? Which team needs a Sigma pep talk?
Lions.
Oh, okay.
This one's going to get me in trouble no matter what.
Yeah. Because I'm gonna be like, okay. If we hosted Conclave in Detroit again, what would be the first stop?
So every regional conference, there's always been stuff going on in Belle Isle. So that's what I know about.
Okay. All right. You survived Sigma Speed. Now let's talk business. We're here in downtown Detroit, the birthplace of Motown. Legacy lives here, and that's exactly what we're here to talk about. The legacy that you have built and the one that you want to continue as International President of Phi Beta Sigma. Why do you want to be International President?
First and foremost, I love this organization. Next week, I will actually celebrate 34 years as a Sigma. The second thing is I see an opportunity to move our organization ahead. You know, I see the opportunities that I've had to lead an international organization corporately, to lead and work with political appointments throughout my career. And so these pieces really come together to add value to our organization and really, to my theme, achieve the vision of our founders. And so I've been blessed with opportunities, skills. I believe I can do that. And I'm offering that to the brotherhood.
Okay. So what do you consider your greatest strength, and what do you would still need to work on?
Yeah, I think my greatest asset I bring is just the analytical mindset. And so I look at things from a process perspective, and also from a value of people perspective. Even in business, we talk about employee engagement, right? The people are our biggest asset. And so how we take care of our members, our customers, so that they can be successful in the work that we want them to do.
So let's talk about the fraternity for a minute. What are some parts of the fraternity that needs reform? And then what are some traditions that need to continue to live on through?
Yeah, so certainly we've got to first define what is tradition. So I want to set the record straight on that to begin with. Sometimes we have these things that, they've been around for 5 years and people call them tradition, right? I think A. Langston himself, right, started, these things. And just a side story, when a few years ago, my state meeting was going to be at my alma mater where I was initiated. And some of the brothers from that chapter, I was talking to them, some of the younger brothers from the chapter, and they were saying that there was something that they were doing that I was like, man, that's really kind of odd that you're doing that. Like, what made you guys do that? And he said, oh, that's tradition. I'm like, hold on. I was initiated here. I was the chapter president here. I was a chapter advisor here. Y'all started 3 years ago. That's not tradition, right? So we have a lot of things that have come, right, 60 years, 80 years, 90 years after the organization started, that somehow people believe are tradition, right? And so we have to really reorganize and reorient people and brothers into what really is core to our organization. And those core things truly are to be held on to and value and centralized as we move forward.
So what do you think are some unmet needs of the fraternity, like that you will think that the fraternity needs to continue to push?
Yeah, we still certainly have a significant opportunity to improve our operational membership support. So our brothers, we have not met the level of customer service that our brothers need and expect and should receive. The other area is another operational area on Blue Culture Collections, or our retail operations, where we haven't generated a profit in a number of years. And so again, it's process oriented in terms of the things that we need to do to turn that operation around. And then talk a lot about technology, because that underscores and underpins a lot of the improvements that we'll see, that will advance. And those will be immediate steps to improve our technology infrastructure so that we can deliver better services to our brothers, to our members, and to the communities that we serve.
So let's talk 2 years down the line. You won your presidency, you've done your first term. What type of legacy do you hope to have left behind?
First, a team concept. And so not David Turner, but the headline should be Phi Beta Sigma achieves legacy blank, right? Landmark achievements in our real estate development, landmark achievements in funding of our programs and our youth engagement, landmark program and recognition for our efforts overseas. And so I believe, groundbreaking efforts that we haven't seen before in our organization. And the other piece that is sustainability of those, not just sort of one-hit wonders on the activities that we engage in.
So let's talk about regions for a second. How do you plan to support regions that sometimes felt like often left behind, like the Western region?
Yeah, I think the first thing is what I've done as First Vice, which is show up. And so I spent a lot of time in the Western region to, make sure they understand you may have the smallest number of members, but you're just as important, just as valued to me and to our organization. The other part is listening. I think I spent more time on the phone with the Western region regional first vice, than any others. And, one of the things I always ask the regional first vice on any of our calls before we get off is, what do you need from me? What are the obstacles that you have that I need to remove barriers for you What do you need from me to help you be successful? And that's really the way I lead, is put people who have the skill set, the expertise in position, and then remove obstacles and make sure they have the resources to be successful. I think that's the way forward in Phi Beta Sigma. And I think that's different than what we see as a standard operating procedure in terms of, elected officials in our organization and elected appointees.
Okay.
I want to take this moment to talk about something serious: the tragedy of Caleb Wilson and the issues of hazing in Greek life. This shook not just the other fraternities, but Phi Beta Sigma as well, and the entire Divine Nine. So how is Phi Beta Sigma addressing hazing issues?
Yeah, so certainly our prayers go out to his family and really the families of any hazing victim, no matter what organization or organization's members were a part of it. We certainly have our risk management efforts, our risk management training and certification. We talk about hazing in our MIP program, but we're also ramping up additional efforts to make sure we're having constant conversations about how we not just initiate our brothers, but how we care for our brothers, our new initiates, our prospective members, because these are young men that we said have what it takes to be a Sigma. We want them as our brothers, and so how do we care for young men that we want to be our brothers? And so in the coming months, you'll see just more discussions rolling out, more dialogue, and a session at Conclave as well, leading up to some work that we're doing on a longer term, so again, more consistent, more sustaining conversation about hazing in the process.
So what does zero tolerance mean to you and your administration?
Yeah, first it means that I'm accountable to all of the rules of Phi Beta Sigma. I'm accountable to our entire constitution and bylaws. Sometimes in Sigma, a lot of our brothers want the rules enforced, except for the rules they don't want enforced. Right? So they'll be selective on which rules they get enforced. But the reality is, we became members of Phi Beta Sigma, and we vowed to uphold the Constitution and bylaws, the rule of law of Phi Beta Sigma, to uphold the standards that have been accepted and adopted by the conclave. I hear sometimes brothers talk about Sigma is the sum of all, and I'll preface this with, part of my schooling was paid for by a academic scholarship, a math scholarship. So I can say with definitiveness that sum means, right, or Sigma is a symbol for sum, not sum of all, right? So that of all is an add-on, right? It means our collective effort moving in the same direction is powerful, not any and everything that an individual wants to do, wants to be. And so we will enforce the rule of law, the Constitution and bylaws, and the conclave mandates for everyone, no matter what level in the organization.
So risk management has been a hot topic, across all fraternities and sororities. And my question for you is, how do we support grieving families throughout a time like that while still holding accountability within the fraternity?
Yeah, I think the first thing we do to support families is that we take just a stronger posture as they would in ensuring that anyone that hurts a candidate for membership in our organization is held accountable. So that's part of our zero tolerance policy. If you break these rules, we will stand with the family in ensuring that you are held accountable for violating our rules and violating their child.
So how do we preserve and safeguard the bond of the fraternity while still eliminating these harmful practices?
Yeah, I think if you understand the fraternity, and if you understand brotherhood, then those practices wouldn't even be part of your activity, right? If you understand brotherhood, then you wouldn't be right swinging a frying pan at someone. You wouldn't be doing some of these things to an individual again that you want to be your brother. I think the other piece is we have to understand that the bond of brotherhood is built not just during the intake process. It's built even more so after the fact. I talk a lot about how when I got moved out, transferred to San Diego for a corporate opportunity. The brothers in San Diego, they took care of me. When I was traveling internationally, they took care of my family. They never asked me what my process was to come into the organization. What they said is, you wear the same Sigma that I do, and whatever you need, we got you. That's what the real brotherhood is.
This is bigger than tradition. This is about protection. This is about perseverance, and this is about purpose. We've talked about the past, the present, and your vision, but let's go even further. How do you plan to expand Phi Beta Sigma's impact in underserved communities?
The first thing is making sure we're using all of Phi Beta Sigma, all of our resources, and all of our strategic arms. So as we look at our PBS Impact Foundation and the philanthropic component, as we look at Sigma Pact 1914 and our advocacy and our legislative component, and then certainly as we look at the fraternity side, our brothers, our boots on the ground, and our community impact, all three of those working together, not just in the States, but also internationally. We are a fraternity that boasts having African presidents in our midst, but we don't have a sustained programmatic effort on the African continent, and we got to do that and make that adjustment.
So let's shift to HBCUs for a second. So what role do HBCUs play in the Divine Nine, and why must we continue to uplift them?
Yeah, not just in the Divine Nine. As we look at certainly where most of our Black doctors come from, most of our Black judges come from. And as a matter of fact, I think in Sigma's history, we have only one president, international president, that has not come from an HBCU. So I would be only the second in our history. And so HBCUs have consistently delivered and produced top talent and top excellence in our communities.
So how can Phi Beta Sigma lead efforts to promote and protect HBCUs nationwide?
Yeah, I think that's another area where we go back to all of our efforts, right? So we've got the foundation where we should be raising funds to help students going to our HBCU campuses. We've got the PAC where we should be advocating for legislative support and policies that impact and positively position our HBCUs. And then, of course, our brothers as mouthpieces and voices in their communities with our Sigma Betas even, and encouraging them into HBCUs is kind of all those things working together is what we should be and will be doing going forward.
Well, as we know, the collegiates are the heartbeat of the fraternity. So what strategies do you have to increase the collegiate engagement and retention?
Yeah, so one of the things we've done over the last several years, I brought in a company called Fired Up, and their whole mission is working with collegiate organizations on growth. And so we talk about this growth, quantity versus quality, trade-off, and the fact that you really need quantity to even know what quality looks like. And what I mean by that is if you've got five prospects that show up at the informational and you took 3, you can say you were selected. But if you had 50 that showed up at the informational and you took 3, then I know you took the best of the best because you had a lot of comparisons to know what greatness really looked like. And so we've been working with collegiate chapters on how to grow the pipeline so they really know what excellence and quality looks like. And then one final thing on that, the other thing we've been looking at and I've been working on is the Department of Education publishes information with respect to African American male on-campus enrollment at schools all across the country. And so I look at it kind of as a business opportunity, right? What's the market opportunity and what's our share of the market? And so we have some HBCUs where we have certainly larger numbers than we do at our PWIs. But if I've got a school that's got 400 African American males and the chapter has 10, but I've got a HBCU with 2,500 African American males and the chapter has 25, which one is really doing better? In my view, it's that PWI because they've got a greater market share, greater share of the market. And so really using that outside data to also help us drive our targets and our growth opportunities.
Okay, speaking of data driven and making sure that we lay the data out and collecting it, let's talk tech plans. So from operations to membership experiment, what is your tech plans?
Yeah, so number one, we've got some upgrades to our systems that have been sort of on the blueprint, on the drawing board, if you will, for some time. They've been dragging along. Those are priority number one. One, we need those improvements to better serve our brothers. We need the data to better serve ourselves and the organization, even our collegiates. And one example I always give is if you think about our membership application, we ask for your name, we ask what school, we ask your GPA, what year in school, what's your expected graduation date. But the majority of that information doesn't go into our system today. And so we come back out every year asking, hey, who's graduating? Let us know, as opposed to having the data already to say, here are all the collegiates that said they were graduating in May of 2025. Right? We know our target audience. Let's double check. Are they still graduating in that time frame? If they are, have they lined up a job already? If not, we can connect them with our virtual career fair. Do we know where they're going so we can connect them with an alumni chapter? And so that technology and that data element sort of drives everything else that we do to service our members.
Okay. How do you plan to elevate our international chapters and our Sigma's global footprint?
Yeah, and one of the things I've done in my past corporate life, I actually was international controller for a service division, so I had responsibility for operations throughout Latin America and Canada. And so I mentioned before, one of the things that we don't have today is we don't have a sustained programmatic thrust outside of the United States. And so I've already been talking to the chapter in Ghana about what that might look like in Ghana, right, on the African continent. And then we've got to do something similar with, I'll say, Latin America or the Caribbean, if you will. Just like any corporate entity, right? We don't look at North America and the rest of the world, right? It's North America, it's Africa, Middle East, it's Latin America, it's the Caribbean. Those all have different needs, different nuances that we need to consider, as opposed to just these two, U.S. and everything else.
Okay. So let's talk first 100 days. Let's fast forward to after conclave. You won your election. What does the first 100 days look like as international president?
So I've got some executive orders planned for day one. Certainly on some things we just need to move forward on and execute. But the other thing I think brothers can look forward to from me is bringing more brothers to the table. When I became regional director, we didn't have truly job description or clarity on appointed positions and what their roles were. Typically, those had been political appointee positions. And so before I did any of that, my vice director was a former president in HR for a large company. And so we sat down and wrote out expectations, sort of, here are the deliverables expected for any appointee in this role. And then I put out job postings, we collected resumes, we did interviews, and I filled those roles in that way, which gave opportunities to some brothers that if we were waiting for someone to kind of bless them and put their name in the hat, they wouldn't have gotten those opportunities. So I'm already doing that same thing with respect to our national committees and appointments, such that I'll be ready to roll with our hiring process and get brothers to the table who have the expertise and the passion to move us forward.
Right. And to end on this note, a real one, there are people out there, folks in the media, even in our own community, who look at Greek life and say, it's just glorified gangs or party cliques. So what do you say to people who question the purpose, the value, legacy, and even the integrity of Black Greek letter organizations?
Yeah, I think my biggest example, my best story, is my personal story. I came to Phi Beta Sigma. My brother and sister are 10 and 11 years older than me. I didn't really know about Greek life, but I had some guys that met me on campus and said, didn't even ask me about Phi Beta Sigma. One of the charter members from our chapter ran the Boys and Girls Club in town. And so they would knock on my door on Saturday mornings on our whole floor and offer any men that wanted to come to go to the Boys and Girls Club with them. And so I found a group of men who were encouraging me to do what my mom expected me to be doing while I was away. And then beyond that, I have gone through, I'll say, every phase of life where even corporate opportunities I've had, they've come because there was a Sigma who knew the owner of the company and said, hey, can I put your name in this conversation? I transferred, I'm a long-term Chicago resident. I was transferred out to California for a role and didn't know anybody in the San Diego area. And I found a brother through, at the time, MySpace. I'm dating myself, but connected with that brother, and the brothers out there just took care of me, took care of my family. I was traveling a lot internationally, and so I found a network of brothers who really have taken care of me and who are passionate about one, taking care of me and treating me truly as their brother, and then working together to take care of young people and others in our community.
Brother Vice President, this was more than an interview. It was a statement, a call to action, one that says we must lead with integrity, we must serve with urgency, and we must protect the legacy that was built for us, by us. In a time where our communities are tested, our youth are watching, our future is being written, we cannot afford to be neutral. Greek life isn't just about the letters, it's about the leadership behind them. This is our moment, this is our mission, and this is Historically Black Sense. A special thanks to Detroit Coffee Lodge for being a part of our powerful conversation and continuing to be a hub for culture, community, and caffeine. We appreciate you. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Historically Black Sense on all platforms. Again, thank you so much for being here today. I am Kevin Keys III, and good night.